Three. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It is a joy to be with you today. We have got a lot to talk about with these cabinet level picks from President-elect Trump and the people who will be closest to him, at least the public face of those who will be closest to him. We're not talking about Elon Musk, who reportedly has been with him every single day. Every single day. And he's got an oversight over corporations that conceivably could be competition for him. Because, like many of our biggest, most wealthiest people, their wealth is derived from you and me, from government contracts. Think about that, everybody. That's Jeff Bezos. That's Boeing. That's Raytheon. That's everybody. They get the big contracts, and he'll have a check on that, among other things. So let's talk about this. I want you to, hey, Robert, shalom to you, my dear, dear, dear brother and friend. Please go to the Santita Jackson and Friends Facebook page. Become my friend there. That's the only place I can accept friends. Please, Santita Jackson and Friends. But please join Robert and everybody else over on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Something funny on the way to my progressive politics. We were streaming a little bit more than 3 million people a week. And I guess as our politics became more pronounced, the algorithms keep squeezing us down. So I need you to pass the show along and like the show. It helps us with the algorithm, and we need that help. Please, please, please. Wink, nod, wink, nod, wink, nod. And so please pass this show along and like the show, like and share the show. And go to X at the Santita Jackson Show and at Santita J. That's a lot easier. So please become my friend and let's continue to get this show, grow this show. I had an Uber driver who just touched my heart. She took off her mask and she looked at me and she said, "You Santita, oh my goodness," moved me greatly. Because she said, "You don't know how much your show means to people." And what we're trying to do is communicate truth to you and really move away from the censorious environment in which we find ourselves. So much of what we want to share is being censored. And we need to be sensitive to that. And it didn't start with the Trump administration, everybody. This is something that we have been seeing more and more and more, and we have got to be aware of that. And you see it in social media. So let's get right to it. Who is Marco Rubio, the senator from Florida? And how will he be the Secretary of State if he has been banned from traveling to China? Who is Pete Henstag? Who's he? Department of Defense, someone who does not want women in combat. Illinois Senator Tammy Duckworth said, "How do you think I had my legs blown off?" Really? Mr. Hegseth, what are we talking? And what do his tattoos mean? Bulwark has a report that says that they really symbolize violence. Got to think about that. He is known primarily as a Fox News pundit. What does that mean? Who is Tulsi Gabbard, who had been a staunch Democrat, but she had been someone who was a thinking Democrat because she was very critical. And she was critical about some things that bothered me too. And Democrats boxed her out, so she was in no man's land, and now she is over in Republican land. Maybe they are more hospitable to her and some a belief system that is, say, not doctrinaire with the so-called left-wing politics. I just want to know what your thoughts are. We've got a lot of people every day. Matt Gaetz, he resigned from Congress yesterday, the day before an ethics report was going to be released on him. So because he's no longer a member of Congress, no ethics report, although it does exist. But you know what? I always believe in speaking to people smarter than myself. What about recess appointments? This could all be null and void. Because if Congress is put into recess, they can just be put into the system at least for a year. Think about that, everybody. There are many, many ways to skin this cat. But let's talk about many of the MAGA voters. And really, I'm not going to call them just MAGA because it's not that simple. You have a lot of people who said they had never voted for the Republican Party before, but they saw something in President-elect Trump that worked for them. Maybe he's talking about the economy. Was there a plan there? No, but he said he felt your pain. He's going to do something about it. He said he was tired of all these wars. And yet he has the most hawkish cabinet we have seen in decades. There's a lot going on here. So, you know what? I said, let me reach out to some people who really do understand this. We're going to be focusing on this today. And we want you to focus on this too, because it really is the people's business, because it's your money and you're the ones who are making the decisions. I love the work that this young man does, Kevin Gosztola. Of course, he is the editor of The Dissenter. I love The Dissenter, and we're going to have you to come back to talk about free speech and what is happening now, because it seems like dissent is under attack. And of course, you're with the Chicago Activism Hub, a wonderful group of young activists who are really intent on getting the messages of those who are aggrieved out into the community and out into the broader world. We've got the chair of the Transformative Justice Coalition, Attorney Daryl Jones, or Daryl Jones Esquire. Thank you very much. Brilliant, brilliant lawyer. He and Barbara Arnwine have a radio show on on WOL in Washington, D.C. every Tuesday at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. Please give them your support. And of course, there's no one more prominent in the voting rights space than Attorney Daryl Jones, and many of us call her the godmother of voting rights, Attorney Barbara Arnwine. Welcome to the show, gentlemen. Let me start with you, Kevin. Just give us like the 30,000-foot view. If you want to go into the weeds, you're certainly more than welcome to. What about these picks? I mean, Matt Gaetz has everybody talking all over Washington. I mean, I don't know if they're frightened or shocked, dismayed. I don't know what it is, but he's got everybody talking.
Yeah, definitely. Before I get too specific, just to stay broad, I'm struck by the reaction that, Donald Trump is just picking these people to stir outrage. I understand the tendency to believe that because he's such a detestable figure, but these are the loyalists. These are the people who were there at Trump's rallies. And I would really beg of people who are going to be justly opposing Donald Trump to just recognize that these are the people we could have expected Donald Trump to want to be in his position. So to me, it's not that shocking that Matt Gaetz and some of these other figures would get positions, because these are the people that came there day in and day out on the campaign trail for him. And so I don't see why he would want to pick your average Republican who would be totally concerned about how they appear on television or how some of this politics translates to the wider, broader public, because that's a liability for Donald Trump. And I'm not saying that because I support Donald Trump. I'm saying that just so people can understand that we're in this moment where he's picking people who are going to transparently show us what a Donald Trump second term will be all about. And we should welcome that as people who are fighters for justice, for civil rights. We're not going to have to guess when it comes to this administration, where we have to be to defend communities and where we have to be in order to try and build resistance to what is going to unfold. We're going to know right away here, even before he's inaugurated. And it's been telegraphed. I mean, I look at these picks and we can broadly see who's going to be carrying out the mass deportation campaign that has been called for by Trump's administration. We're seeing in these picks, I think, a very high potential for something that bothers me in terms of foreign policy. Are we going to see attacks on Iran? Because are we finally going to see the hawks in charge that are going to be starting an even more full-scale war? And then when you think of Gates and you think of Tulsi Gabbard, is there any chance that they do anything to try and rein in the unchecked surveillance that has defined this government for the last 10 to 20 years? Or is it just that these people are supporters of Trump and they're going to get in there and see the machinery and then make it work for the Trump administration? I think it's a very real possibility that some of what we've heard from them, were their pronouncements to abolish the FBI, or that they're going to pardon certain people who they see as heroes, like Edward Snowden, that maybe that all falls by the wayside when it comes to just simply supporting the infrastructure in a way that serves Donald Trump, and continuing onward, and probably means that the machinery that they have at their fingertips in the Justice Department and other parts of government will just be targeted to opponents of Donald Trump. And I'll just leave it there for right now.
Well, it's very interesting because Tulsi Gabbard said that because she has been a critic of the Biden administration, that she has been followed, she's been surveilled. Do you think that might, as someone who would oversee the intelligence agencies, do you think how might that impact her? Because she's always been she's become a bit of a maverick. Mm-hmm. She's not someone, Kevin and Daryl, that you can really, she's an American, yes, and I believe she's a patriot. I do. I don't have to agree with everything that she says or thinks, but that doesn't matter to me. She is that. But she comes down, you don't quite know where she's going to land. Let me just put it that way. That's not something that bothers me. I just like to know. I mean, do you think that this might impact what she feels about what has become an increased surveillance upon the American people, Kevin? I mean, we all have seen that.
Yeah, I believe that something will have to be done, because for Democrats and Republicans, they've seen time and time again this surveillance court that's known as the FISA court has ruled over and over again that there are these violations occurring. And we saw that Black activists, as well as you had people who were involved in, I want to say, the January 6th riot, that they were being surveilled by these agencies without warrants. Like, it was not justified. They shouldn't have been captured. Their information should have been swept up, but they were targeted. And there were, after George Floyd was murdered in Minneapolis, we saw the uprising after that, and there was, I believe, some surveillance that was unfolding that was then tagged and mentioned by this court as not being sanctioned, not being allowed. And so, I think it's certainly possible that she could deal with this in a way that prior intelligence chiefs have been unwilling. But I also do think it's a problem here that Tulsi is somebody who I think is vehemently anti-Muslim, and that's something that we're going to have to deal with and confront. She positions herself as anti-war and as a person of peace, but she's also, she was up to this point, and my knowledge, still in the military and had been deploying to fields I think she was deployed to an African country at one point in the last couple of years, had done some time abroad overseas at a military base. And so I don't see how that comports with her supposed anti-war values, that she remains enlisted. That being said, I am weary of the way in which she is attacked by Democrats, because I have my knowledge of the history of the Cold War. I know how people were discredited for expressing views, and it is very common and we're going to see this during the next several weeks and into her confirmation hearing, that they're going to call her pro-Putin supporter. They're going to call her a Putin supporter. They're going to call her an Assad toady, because she made a trip to Syria to see what was going on with the conflict. And that I just object to that, because the way that this has always been gone about by Democrats is to discredit these views that they don't support as a political party. And so I would say there are probably very real reasons to object to some of these picks, but I would caution people to fall for some of the ways in which liberal Democrats are going to oppose them that don't actually get at why the public that voted for Donald Trump like these people. I mean, the people around that supported Donald Trump, who voted for him, support several of these individuals who are getting these posts. I detest their politics, but there's something about them that the people who voted for Donald Trump like. And we need to confront and deal with it, because I believe that in our work, we should take up some of these issues around surveillance, civil liberties, and around not in pursuing these wars and, allowing what has been unfolding in Gaza that's so horrific. And Donald Trump's not going to end any of that. So it's going to be up to us to confront these picks and deal with what they do and prepare some kind of opposition.
Well, I mean, Daryl, I think that Kevin is onto something, because they've tapped into something, and the anti-establishment mood. I was reading the data. CNN last, 4 years ago, election night, had more than 13 million viewers. They were just under 1 million this year. I mean, the landscape has changed, and for us not to acknowledge that, Daryl and Kevin, is not smart. We're missing something, and that's why I think we're in the position in which we find ourselves today, because they call a lot of these persons conspiracy theorists, but those of us from the activist community understand surveillance. But we're hearing the right's take on it. The left has ceded that ground, and that to me is not smart. We need to have a take on it. Now we're defending the FBI. I'm like, the FBI was implicated in Dr. King's murder. Are you kidding me? When did this happen? Malcolm X. Whoa. Fred Hampton. Wait a minute. And they use informants to surveil Black Lives Matter and other activists today. And we don't talk about that. And peace activists, let's come on. These people are taking space that we used to occupy. And so I think that we're missing something here, because he has chosen people that make you go, huh? He has thrown the Washington establishment not on its ear, on its head, because they don't know what to make of this. And he has the votes in the Senate, and he has the tools at his disposal to have, at the very least, to have recess appointments and put all of these people in. That's where we are, everybody. And that does not make me a Trumper. It makes me a student of political science. Science, you are agnostic about the results. What you do is you put everything into the equation. Okay, look, I am a musician. I was recruited to school for math. Whatever you put into that equation, the equal sign does stand for something, everybody. And trust and believe, when someone is out of tune, you hear it. Okay? So let's just stop. So you tell me, what are you seeing? Because I've got whiplash. I mean, there's no Liz Cheney around here. There are no establishment Republicans. They're pulling up people who you just say, what is he looking for? And not just that. I think Kevin is onto something. What were his people looking for?
Well, Santita, welcome to Donald Trump version 2, right? Donald Trump version 1 had similar characteristics with some of the people that he surrounded himself around. Donald Trump version 2 is going even deeper. And I think that the piece that some people are wondering about through the election cycle and everything else is that what President-elect Trump has done is that he has positioned himself into the blue-collar appeal of America. And the language that he's used, the approach that he's taken, it's all gone to the blue-collar appeal of America. Too many folks were talking about the middle class. He went to the blue-collar. He went to the hardcore part of it. That this is where it's about. That's the reason that you saw the commercials, all the transgender commercials, and that don't have men playing in women's sports. That's all going to that blue-collar mentality, that blue collar voter, that blue collar American, is what he was reaching for.
But wait a minute, isn't that not just blue collar America? Because 2/3 of Americans don't go to college, right?
Mhm.
So it's not just blue collar America. Was he just reaching toward America?
And I was getting ready to say that let's be careful with how we use the title, right? I use the term blue collar so you know the philosophy of thought that
Okay.
was there, but not simply the classification by numbers, by economic income, or anything along those lines. I'm talking about the philosophy of thought that pervades, the American psyche, and that's what he was that's what he was tacking into, was that philosophy, that thought. That's why you have all the athletes. Remember the athlete that has the MAGA hat, the NFL player that's come. That's where all this is coming from. That's that blue collar philosophy. That's that rough philosophy. When we went through the Republican convention, what did we have going on? They were referring to it as what, an overload of male machismo, right? That whole strong messaging is what was being sent forward. Well, what he's now showing with these picks are the loyalty to that messaging, right? When we look at Matt Gaetz is one of the people that, he stood with President Trump. He, throughout the campaigning, throughout everything that the former president has gone through, Matt Gaetz has stood with him.
Wait a minute, because you're saying some things that are making me think. Because I think many of us have to go back a couple years. It was not a certainty that he was going to be the nominee.
Right.
He was his popularity was beginning to ebb. He stayed in the game, but there was the distinct possibility that someone else. That's why Ron DeSantis came out so aggressively. Nikki Haley came out so aggressively. They thought they saw vulnerabilities, but the more he was prosecuted, the more to his people he looked like he was being persecuted, because 80 million Americans are incarcerated. So that's a fourth of us, right? And
that's right.
And so, which means you have two friends, and so on and so on and so on. Everybody you know has been touched by this prison industrial complex. So when you start saying that, oh, he's a convicted felon, you're talking about somebody's son, somebody's husband, somebody's wife, somebody's daughter, somebody that somebody knows who's trying to come out of prison or who's been arrested, who wants another chance. You see what I'm saying? Because that's why I was saying, wait a minute, our messaging, you all have to watch what you say and what you say, because you don't know, somebody's got a trans daughter. Somebody's got a trans son. Right. Somebody's got a gay brother, sister. You don't know. People don't tell you everything. Some things you find out. But if you keep everybody in America is touched by all of these issues in some way, shape, form, or fashion. I wasn't trying to interrupt you, but I mean, when you said that, it just, because I know how hard you and Barbara and the Transformative Justice Coalition team were campaigning. And you were going to places where Kevin Gustola, they were really working to get the vote out and to protect it. In the meantime, you're running up against a headwind and you're trying to figure it out. And you're saying, wait a minute. And when we started watching Trump, who is a master marketer, someone who's been able to remain relevant in the popular culture for 50 years. That's extremely difficult to do. There are very few people. A very dear friend of ours said, he was talking to my brother, and he said, you know what? I can only think of a handful of people who've been on the front row for 50 years. Mick Jagger. He said, and Reverend. He said, there's some people who are current today. They're not like also rans. They're like, wait a minute. Whoa, they're here? And I'm saying Trump's like that guy.
Yeah, and there's a consistency that's there, and people need to recognize the consistency. One of the things that you raised, Santita, was when you were making reference to the fact that Vice President Harris and the Democrats were going against former President Trump and his felony convictions and all the other troubles that he was going through. What they fail to realize is that within that argument, if you're, we're on the front lines, right? We're the Transformative Justice Coalition. We're out there. We're trying to bring people into the voting process. Those that were formerly convicted of felonies, trying to have their rights restored. Well, if you're the party that's out there saying, don't elect him because he's a former felon, right? But we want the former felons to have voting rights. Well, what exactly are you saying? What exactly is the consistency of your message? There's a problem in what you're saying and a problem with what you're asking that those that are convicted do. So, that's one of the inconsistencies that's been encountered there. Now, let's look at the other side, right? What we see happening with former President Trump after his conviction, of course, waiting the sentencing, is that he's picking up somebody who was going through legal troubles, right? With Matt Gaetz, with the sex trafficking, all the investigations and everything else. Former President Trump stayed there. He said, I'm not moving. I'm going to support you. I'm not moving. And he stayed in that position. And now he's elevated him Matt Gaetz for consideration as being the Attorney General. There's a consistency that's there with regards to the loyalty. It's the consistency. It's the loyalty. It's what, and I call it just the loyalty and blue collarism go together. Right. And this is my mindset that those that are coming from the trenches, you pick your horse and you stay with your horse. You don't change horses or in the middle of the stream. You don't start whipping your horse because you don't like it anymore. Right. You don't turn on it. And what I think we see with former President Trump and what he's appealing to here is that consistency. This is who was with me when I was down. This is who I was with when they were down. And I'm bringing them along with me now. That's the consistency that's there. That's the loyalty that I think is being portrayed that's there. Now, I'm not a Matt Gaetz fan. I know there's a lot of problems with him. I think it's going to be really interesting as Gaetz moves along in this process. What becomes really interesting is how the appointments process, if it's a recess appointment, how that's going to work
Explain
out.
that. Explain the recess appointments.
Well, while Congress is on recess, the president-elect is asking that the heads of the Republicans who control all branches of government and the Senate in particular.
Well, they don't control it until everybody's sworn in, right?
Yeah, until they're sworn in, but in effect, they're going to be in control.
I was just trying to split hairs. Wait a minute, I was hoping.
Right. So while Congress is in recess, the president is asking for committees to convene and to be able to approve the appointments that he is making now. And so you're not going to have the full consideration. You're not going to have the full debate and all of that goes on with regards to these appointments that the president has selected for the various positions. That's going to be really interesting because at that point, you're silencing some of the dissent and some of the dialogue that goes on with approving and dissecting and getting into the weeds, as we say, with regards to the appointees and are they the appropriate person and what are we actually getting into when we get this person, what comes along with them. Particularly with Matt Gaetz, one of the questions that's going to be asked, because as you've so correctly noted, that the report, the health ethics report dealing with his sexual actions, allegations with underage folks, dealing with crossing lines with regards to sex trafficking.
Underage girls, and he was showing the pictures on the floor of the U.S. House of Representatives. He had a colleague, yes, I'll say it, because the man was saying it on the news yesterday, and he completely did a 180. Come on, y'all. But sadly, that is also Washington, and that is also power. Mm-hmm. Whenever you have power, at the nexus of power is a lot of personal mischief. I'm sorry to disappoint you folks, but that's how it works. That's why Nancy Pelosi ended the House page system. Remember the gentleman from Virginia mm-hmm. who was pursuing the underage boys, and he literally lived around the corner from mm-hmm. their dormitory. How does that work? Excuse me. Yes, I said it, and I'll add more to it. No, I won't. I don't need that smoke. But I mean, come on. I mean, and everybody's like, and what is killing me is I'm watching the press. Oh, this is so. first of all, if they wanted to dig into his background, they would have done it.
Mm-hmm.
They have not. They have protected him as they protected so many other people, but there's some people they don't protect. They don't protect progressives.
Mm-hmm.
They don't go after them, Kevin. They
Yeah.
let him go. And so you know what? He'll walk into, and he'll be the top cop in the United States of America while we've got a child sex trafficking problem,
Mm-hmm.
a crisis here.
And what becomes even more interesting, Santita, is that, as I was, just going through it and just sort of sifting through all the information with regards to Matt Gaetz, the question will become, because, the House committee was set to release the report tomorrow, right? Which they're now saying, we're not really certain if and when.
They can't do it because he's no longer a member.
Right.
As soon as
they can still release it. They can still release it. They can't enforce anything because he's resigned, but they can still release the report. They have the ability to do that. The other piece,
do you think
I don't believe so. But the other piece, that also plays in there, however, is that you also have the bar associations, right? The American Bar Association, the Bar Association in Florida, where Gaetz is a member, that can also call for that report for their investigation. Should he be penalized? Should his license be at stake because of the sex trafficking allegation and the sex with underage girls? All of that becomes a factor, and if that comes into play, then it really, I think, opens up all kinds of discussions with regards to the Attorney General and that position. It's also going to be interesting to see what the federal prosecutors that are in place now, how they respond to having him as their head. What do they do for the sex trafficking unit? The federal sex trafficking unit. How does that play out? Does the information now get lost? Those prosecutors that were involved in the investigation, are they now supposed to just forget and not mention anything that they now know? So all of this becomes really interesting when you're trying to tap someone or tapping someone to be the chief cop for the United States. And so, these are a lot of issues that I think that are just going to be open for Matt Gaetz. And let's not even get into abolishing DEI and all the other stuff that he's gotten into.
Oh, no. We'll get there.
And what Daryl's saying is important too, because how can you be the Attorney General who's been accused of sex trafficking and actually investigate sex trafficking and sexual assault cases and all this abuse that, might flow from being Attorney General? I don't know how much of it happens at a federal level. I mean, some of these things seem to be more state related or county or city offenses they might be. But what about our prisons? What about our prisons where you have, like out in California, they have an actual women's prison that's known as the Rape Club. Mm-hmm. And people may not know that exists but it's I believe it's called Dublin. And John Ossoff is a senator. I was impressed by some of the work that he did to investigate and follow up on what's been happening in some of these facilities out in California. But, you have actual guards and you have wardens and people who are in charge of our prison facilities who are predators. And how do you have any faith that an attorney general is going to follow up on any of this and take this seriously if he himself has engaged in this behavior?
Well, I mean, and my question is, see, that's when you start digging in the weeds, because it's like, I don't know if there's a lot of honesty here.
Mm-hmm.
Because we choose to go after some people and we leave some other people alone. To me, what's happening here is just certainly something is amiss, because you get generally people wait to undergo the confirmation hearings, even when you have the votes, because now they're saying that the women in the U.S. Senate, regardless of party, that number one, that they are in league with each other because they have to deal with sexism. And they want to form a block. At least there is a discussion that they will form a block to block him. He needs every one of those 50 plus 1 votes.
Mm-hmm.
And, but I feel that we've been playing fast and loose with our morals for quite some time, Kevin and Daryl.
Mm-hmm.
Because all you have to do is look at our policies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
international and domestic. And maybe this is, I saw someone say that these are weird times. Yeah, these are weird times. They are. Because what's happening is that the quiet part is being said out loud. And so, as we're looking at Matt Gaetz, and I think that we need to look at everybody. But you also need to ask the questions about people who are asking the questions. Because many of them, their politics guide the questions that they ask and the people whom they protect.
Mhm.
And I think we need to ask those questions because there's something I don't, but see, he's also asking some questions in this time. We have to remember the vast majority of Americans do not trust the Supreme Court.
Mhm.
They don't believe in the integrity of the corporate media.
Right.
They're the most readily available news source that we have. Because all you have to do is turn on the TV and they're there. You don't have to pay for that. You do pay for it, but you don't have to pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
We don't trust the executive branch. We don't trust now medicine.
Yeah.
And there's evidence in all of these spheres and more that with their credibility has been damaged. And so I think that is something that these picks that we're seeing, they've tapped into that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not making excuses for them, anybody, but I'm saying I think you're both right. That Kevin, let me go back to you. These picks did not come out of thin air. Attorney Jones and Karen Goshtola, they did not. They're coming from his people. I mean, look at the vice president elect. He said things that have been horrifying, but he's tapping into something. I mean, he really is, and he is so polished that when you see him on a stage or when you hear him in an interview, you walk away actually liking him more. That's what we saw in the debate with him and Governor Walz. He said, "Well, maybe he's not as bad." I'm a little bit too seasoned for that, but because people of Appalachia are profoundly offended by him. They felt that he picked on poor white people.
Mm-hmm.
That's their takeaway from Hillbilly Elegy. So, my question is, how, Kevin, let's just, as we're looking at Matt Gaetz, what should we be looking for? Because if they have a recessed appointment, he's going to be in for at least a year. So he will be the Attorney General. Kevin, what do you think? What should we be looking for? Robert says it's crazy. And Robert also says, Daryl, that part. Yeah. And he says, wow. It's a lot. But here we are, Kevin.
So I would tell people that you should think about the rules that Donald Trump has always lived his life by and has told us that he lives his life by. And he actually got these rules from a detestable figure named Roy Cohn, who was known as the guy that, he was a repressed gay man. He was a repressed gay man who took it out on everyone else by purging government of anybody who was gay, lesbian, trans, or what have you. And he helped Senator Joseph McCarthy in his witch hunts. But then he took Donald Trump under his wing and he taught him 3 rules: attack, 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 admit nothing, deny everything, and never admit defeat was the 3rd thing. And so we should just recognize when we are falling into traps that Trump and his people want. There are going to be certain things that he, as president, he did this effectively when he was in his first term, and he did it effectively on the campaign trail with Harris and Walz. And there are certain things that they want people to be pulled into. They want you to go down in the muck with them, because then you're no longer really doing what you need to do in order to, I'd say, focus on the issues of justice and civil rights and other matters that are at hand. Now you're coming down to their level, and they're very comfortable with you being right there. And I think what you're hitting at, Santita, about what is going on in this country is that we need to consistently meet people where they are by talking about the two-tiered system that we have in our country. I mean, I think Donald Trump could not be a better avatar, a better representative of that two-tiered system, of how he's been able to benefit from his wealthy elite position, no matter how he moonlights as this person who is an advocate for what Daryl was saying, the blue collar man out there. He has benefited all the way up to where he is today from, being the son of Fred Trump, who had segregated apartments in New York City, benefiting from being able to coalesce all of these rich people around him, win people's admiration, and then never look back, never have to take responsibility, never have to pay bills, hiring contractors, bilking them. You know how many times he's gone to cities to do these rallies? He owes at least hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars, to cities throughout the United States that he's never going to pay, even though he owes them for hosting him when he did these rallies. And so we need to show that, yes, you're right to feel bad. You're right to feel offended, but something we can talk about that apparently the people who run the Democratic Party can't, because they're going to alienate their donor base and they're not going to be able to continue to function as a political party, is that people are not being treated equally and fairly. There are one set of rules for those at the top, and there's a different set of rules for us at the bottom. There are things that we do that if I go out there and engage in those acts, I'm never going to get away with it. There's going to be a cop or an FBI agent at my door. Mm-hmm. I'm going to be charged with offenses. I'm going to have to serve jail time or pay a steep fine. But Donald Trump and his people aren't going to be accountable at all. And I think at its core is the lack of accountability for anything in this country. We've dealt with this. I mean, it's not new necessarily. I'm sure you can point to it throughout history, but it's hard to fathom that we could have a kind of moment like what happened with Richard Nixon, where he just up and resigned because of Watergate. Now we're in a country where it's the exact opposite, that if you do something like that, you could own it and sell it to your supporters, and they'll actually feel even better about you as a leader for being a corrupt person.
I mean, Daryl, well, what does it? I mean, I think Kevin, I think that you're making great sense. But that's where we are as a nation, and that's who we are. People keep saying that's not who we are. Yeah, it is. It really is. But also we are very, very, we feel betrayed. And we feel that our leaders have let us down, and they have. But if you listen to Donald Trump, he'll tell you the system is rigged in my favor. See, don't hate the player, hate the game. Mm-hmm. He keeps telling you that people say, well, he didn't pay taxes. Well, if you're a corporation, and he is a corporation personally, you're not going to pay the taxes, because that America's business is business. It's a colonial project. That's how it works here. So, so my question is, and that's why we're going to have the top cop. He just might get on through now, everybody, particularly with recessed appointments. I mean, Daryl, what will that mean? What will that mean for civil rights, for example? Just given his record, what will that mean? And more than that, not even what we can expect from him. What is it that we need to be doing? Because Kevin, you and I talked about this a little bit earlier. I said, wait a minute, we've got it. By all indications, we don't have the House either. But in 2 years, we can have it. Not even 2 years. What did you say, Kevin? It's going to take what? It's not.
What I said is, for the hopeless people out there, you're going to start hearing about the election campaign in a year. You're going to start hearing about candidates that are running. You can start to invest your hopes and energy, and you can get out the vote, and you can start to mobilize the grassroots in a year to change all of this.
Because in 2 years, you can flip the House. At the height of the Reagan Revolution, after the Jackson campaign of '84, Reverend never, ever, ever stopped campaigning. And not campaigning for himself, campaigning for people. Getting people registered to vote, getting people to run for office. It never stopped. So between 84 and 88 and 86, a funny thing happened on the way to the forum. His work pushed the flipping of the US Senate. So we didn't get Robert Bork. We were the bulwark against this right-wing agenda that Reagan was pushing. We've done it before. We can, we should, and we must do it again. No child should come across a high school stage without a voter registration card. That should be part of your civics education. That's part of it. We should be registering people to vote all the time. These folks, and you're going to bring Liz Cheney around me? Come on. There were lots of things that happened that people went. You can't embrace Liz Cheney, who voted with Donald Trump 90% of the time, Daryl, and then complain about these picks. Because y'all were cheering, well, I'm glad she's here. Really? How is it that the Democratic Party is a comfortable place for her to be? Why hasn't anyone asked her about Project 2025? All you want is Donald Trump, who beat your father into submission. That's the reason you don't want him there. That's it. It has nothing to do with policy. Nothing, Daryl. Nothing.
Right.
And here we are.
Yeah, no, you're precisely on point, Santita. And one of the things that I really want to be certain that people see and appreciate is that what President-elect Trump is doing is precisely what he said he was going to do. You are seeing Project 2025 come into fruition. You're seeing that be the playbook, right? The guide, the instruction manual, if you will, as to how he's assembling this government. Project 25 indicated there was going to be a loyalty test to the president, that they wanted to be that certain that whoever is in place is sufficiently loyal to the king. That's what Project 2025 was saying. What you see with Matt Gaetz is what? Someone who is sufficiently loyal to the king. I mean, he's living up to what he said he would do. What you're going to see with each of these picks, with Hegseth, right? With Pete Hegseth, it's the same thing. That's what you're seeing. So don't be surprised by the picks that he's making, because he told you what the picks were going to be. And you're going to see that litmus test of loyalty to him being the centerpiece of any appointment that he does. When we talk about going through the confirmation process for the members of the cabinet, remember this: he's now well schooled, right? He's had an opportunity to understand now how to best use his power as president to influence and to force issues in the Congress. So look for that to happen. Look for that to happen. He's going to weaponize the Department of Justice to go after people that are against him. You're against his idea, he's going after you personally. He wants to take you down personally so we can put somebody in place that is sufficiently loyal to what I want to have happen. That's what you're seeing happen right now. That's why he's showing you that I can take a Gaetz who might lose his bar license based on his legal standing and things that he's done, crimes that he's committed, and I'm going to make him the attorney general. That's why he's taking a Hegseth that comes off of television with what was he, a major or something like that in the Army National Guard? He would be the lowest guard. Yeah, in the Army National Guard, he would be the lowest ranking person to ever sit as as Secretary of Defense. This is incredible, but he's showing you sufficient loyalty is the test, not anything else. Will you do what I want you to do the way that I want you to do it? That's what he's showing you. And that's what I think is at play right now. It's all straight out of Project 2025. You just have to read it. It's there. Each step is going to be along the way. And we're going to be watching as it comes along. I think that.
But see, Project 2025 started in in 2022.
That's true.
It already. We keep talking about that. I keep trying to put the fine point on it because under Democrats we relaxed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that to me is the danger. We relaxed.
Yeah.
We relaxed under Obama. We lost 1,000+ seats. We lost 40,000 HBCU students. We relaxed. Maybe now we won't relax.
And
because
I think the feeling,
every president has a loyalty test. You're not going to hire someone who's disloyal to you. That's
Right.
That's
crazy. You're not. So because even the metrics that we're applying to him, I'm like, yo, that's how this works. You bring in the ambassadors are people who contributed the most to the campaign. They're people you owe. That's their chit. You're not going to get an internship at the White House unless your parents are big donors.
Mm-hmm.
That on the Hill, all of that. It's an insider's game. I'm sorry to report, everybody. I'm just telling you. And but Robert, they've been going at Project 2025 since 2022. The question is, what are we going to do?
Right.
You got a Congress to get, and the race begins in January.
Right. And some would say it's already begun. And the whole thing, Santita, has got to be that when you raise the issue about Democrats relaxing, there was a relaxation that occurred when President Obama was elected, right? President Obama gets elected, and all of a sudden, because people forgot how tense everybody was prior to that, how tense the country was prior to that. President Obama gets in, and we're like, okay.
But
okay.
not only that, they told us to stand down.
Yep.
Yeah.
No. Let's not forget that part.
That's true.
We should never have listened, because I would say to anyone who listened, he's going to be out of office longer than he was in office. Y'all, he's got to make some major moves right now while he's got both houses of Congress and he's new and he's got the goodwill of the people, because
Right.
this will fritter away pretty quickly. And look at where we are now. He's getting clobbered on how he campaigned with Vice President Harris.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, he shouldn't have been condescending to people. There's no question about that. I don't think he meant, well, you know what? Harm was done. I don't think that he meant to do harm, but harm was done. Further harm was done because he didn't say, I'm sorry, y'all, because the brothers don't like to be talked to that way.
No.
So the thing is, we have to be honest about that, because guess what? Trump's people are not standing down.
Right.
They are energized right now. I got about 2 or 3 more minutes left. I know Kevin I know you got to go to court, Daryl Jones, but Kevin Garstola is going to be with me. We got Colleen Rowley waiting for us on the other side. But what are your thoughts, Daryl, before we go? Help us, please.
At this point in time, and what we're going to see establishing and occurring over the next year or so, you're going to see an affront to a lot of the pieces of the policies, of the personal pieces that people hold in place, their personal philosophies, their beliefs on how people should get along and how government should operate. We're going to see an attack on that. And the question right now is going to be, how do we respond? The response should be, I'm not simply giving up. I'm not going to put my head in the sand and hope it all goes away. It's not. The only way it's going to go away is we get out there, we get our folks registered, we get our folks voting, we get them focused, we get candidates that can win the seats, that can win the elections, and we start pushing on our points. We also have got to fight in the courts. The Transformative Justice Coalition, Black Voters Matter, all of us will be in the courts fighting policies that are that we believe are unconstitutional. So we've got to use the courts that we have to fight. We've got to register people to vote. We've got to have candidates that are running for election that will be committed to the principles for which we stand, and we hold them accountable once they are elected to those positions. And we've got to hold those that are elected right now accountable for the positions they're taking and for what they're doing. But it all starts now. We don't have time to wait. We don't have time to wait. We don't have time to wonder. Some folks will say they're too afraid, that you put your neck out, you're afraid your head might get cut off. Well, guess what? Simply because you don't put your neck out doesn't mean that your throat won't get slashed. It doesn't mean that. What it means is you better get yourself together, pull up your pants, pull up whatever you want to pull up, tie your high heels, whatever you do with your pumps and all that. Get yourself together, get out. Strap up, whatever it is. But get out, register people, and let's get the vote on. Let's get the candidates, and let's get our issues front and center.
That's right. But the thing is, and you have to keep hope alive, Kevin, because people feel betrayed, and that's what you saw, the measure of despair with this vote. People are going to the grocery store. They cannot afford their groceries. The cashiers, they're not making it.
Yeah.
I mean, and more Americans are not. And they think they have someone who's going to fight for them. Did you see the rally when Matt Gaetz said, you know what, until we get this government to heal, we're going to tear all this up, all the alphabets, all of them. And guess what? A lot of people feel that way.
Yep. How about no more of this stuff about the parliamentarian says we can't raise the minimum wage, so let's not try and bring legislation to better Americans' lives. Let's find a way. Let's change the rules. If the rules aren't the way that they're supposed to be, let's change the rules so we can help people.
How about that? How are you going to give me something that lame that the parliamentarian, who no one knows, you didn't even know the parliamentarian position existed, and you're going to say, oh, the Democrats said, oh, we can't do anything because, are you for real? No. Let us continue to look at what's happening here, because this is a lot, because these are people, we don't know what they're going to do. That's the thing. And if they don't have hearings, we really won't know what they're going to do. And it's a very real possibility that these will be recess appointments. These people will just be put into office. And unlike 4 years ago, 8 years ago, Donald Trump has been here, done that. And that's why they say he's moving with a quickness. He's moving the way other incumbents move. That's all he's doing. He'd be crazy if he waited until January 20th or whatever it's supposed to be. That's not how it goes. When you lose the election, you know this better than anyone, Daryl. Washington starts turning over. People start packing their stuff and getting out.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Let's go on over to the next hour of the Santita Jackson Show. Let's look at President Trump's picks. Kevin Goshola, we're going to meet Colleen Rowley over there and Attorney Jones. That's right. Win in that courtroom. Sending you so much love today. We're going to continue to talk about this, though, because I've got whiplash. I don't know what else is going to happen. Oh, no. I just think this is an incredible time to be alive, everybody.
Tighten your seatbelt.
Oh, it's going to be a bumpy ride. And but you have the power, everybody. Get registered to vote. Go to your representatives' offices on the state and the federal levels. Let them know that you're there, you're watching. Let them know what it is that you need. I don't care whether you voted for them or not. They represent you. And let them know that you are here. Let them know that you're here. Don't sit idly by. The system works when you work it. That's what you're seeing these people do. They know the system and they work the system. It's that simple. It really is. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. Back in just a moment.